Tonight you saw someone on a balcony or outside. They're holding something small, bringing it to their lips, taking a deep breath, then letting go. Smoke rises, and maybe you never thought about it. How old is this movement? This gesture, this exact gesture, is one of the oldest habits ever recorded in human history. But I need to tell you something. It didn't start with cigarettes. It didn't start with tobacco. It never started with factories, packages, or advertisements. This feeling, this urge, goes back much further. And once you learn how far back it goes, you'll never look at that person on the balcony the same way again. 50,000 BC. The sun just went down. No Netflix. No phone. No inbox anxiety. No accounts to follow, no episodes to miss, no messages waiting to be read. There's just you, the flames of a campfire, and smoke curling directly into your face. That smoke fills your lungs every night, at every fire, unavoidably. You didn't choose this. Nobody did. But at some point, one of your ancestors looked at that smoke and thought something very different. What if I did this on purpose? That thought, that exact moment, is where smoking truly begins. If you ask someone about the history of smoking, you'll probably hear this story. Columbus arrived in America in 1492, saw the natives smoking tobacco, Europeans learned it, it entered trade routes and spread everywhere. A 500-year story. Clean, tidy, easy to understand. This isn't wrong. But this story is very, very incomplete. Because humans were inhaling smoke long before tobacco was ever discovered. Before history, before writing, maybe even before language. And I'm not the one saying this. Archaeological sites are saying it. Burned seeds are saying it. 12,000-year-old hearths are saying it. And receptors buried deep in the human brain are saying it. The real story is much darker and much more interesting. Here's the part nobody tells you. The human urge to inhale smoke has existed perhaps since the very first day we learned to control fire. 1 million years ago, Homo erectus, our ancestor who came before us, with a smaller brain, heavier brow ridges, but who knew fire, lit a fire in his cave every night, inhaled smoke every night, and inside that smoke sometimes were compounds from very special plants, psychoactive compounds. Meaning millions of years ago, an ancestor of ours might have accidentally inhaled the smoke of the wrong plant, and felt something shift inside their brain. And in that moment they might have thought, I want to feel this again. That's where everything begins. South Africa, Wonderwork Cave. Archaeologists found controlled fire remains dating back 1 million years. Burned plant ash. Charred bone. But pay attention. This was not the trace of a forest fire. It was a fire deliberately, consistently lit and maintained inside a cave. Homo erectus came to sit by this fire every evening. Inhaled smoke every evening. For hundreds of thousands of years. Across generations. Smoke settled into the species' nose, throat, and lungs. Smoke was not foreign. Smoke was home. And home sometimes changes you. But think about this. Not all smoke is the same. Burn pine wood and one thing happens. Burn oak and something else. But what if you burn the wrong plant? What if that plant contains compounds that affect your brain, change your mood, blur your vision, or do the exact opposite and make you feel crystalline clarity? Our ancestors watched every kind of plant fall into fire for hundreds of thousands of years. And some nights, only some nights, something felt different. Nobody knew why. There was no explanation. There was only a feeling. And that feeling was not forgotten. This is where the brain enters the picture. The human brain has an endocannabinoid system. This system regulates mood, memory, appetite, and pain perception. And this system responds to cannabinoids, the compounds found in the cannabis plant. But here's the thing. These receptors did not evolve for cannabis. They were already there, for other purposes. But when cannabis smoke arrived, these receptors recognized it. So when the first human inhaled the smoke of a cannabis plant, their brain wasn't confused. Their brain said, "Ah, welcome. I've been waiting for you." This was not an accident, my friend. This was a biological introduction. UCLA psychopharmacologist Ronald Siegel proposed something very interesting in the 1980s. He said, "The desire to alter consciousness is the fourth fundamental biological drive, right alongside hunger, thirst, and sex. And we don't only see this in humans. Elephants deliberately seek out fermented fruit. Cats zone out for minutes over catnip. Dolphins pass puffer fish between each other. That fish releases toxins as a defense mechanism, and dolphins inhale small amounts to get slightly dazed. And Siberian reindeer eat hallucinogenic mushrooms. Then they drink the urine of another reindeer that ate the mushrooms, because psychoactive compounds pass through intact in urine. Siberian reindeer are doing drug recycling. Genuinely, sincerely, I respect that. So all of this tells us one thing. The desire to alter consciousness predates civilization. Before writing, before agriculture, maybe even before language, a prehistoric human inhaled the smoke of the wrong plant, felt something strange, and that feeling was so powerful that without knowing what happened, without understanding why, they knew only one thing: I want to do this again. And they did it again. And they told others. Not with words. With gestures, by showing, by having others imitate. And this knowledge was passed down from generation to generation. Without writing. Without books. Without schools. Just by the fire. Ear to ear. So why wasn't this urge eliminated by evolution? Why did something seemingly wasteful survive this long? Because it worked. Not just individually. It worked socially. When a group of people shared the same experience together. The same smoke, the same moment, the same feeling. A very deep bond of trust formed between them. Modern neuroscience can now measure this. Shared rituals synchronize neural activity. A group of people breathing together, vibrating together, changing together. Afterward, they fight better together. They hunt better together. They survived better together. The ritual smoke circle was not just a party. It was infrastructure. Now let's look at concrete remains. 500 BC. The Pamir Mountains, Central Asia. A tomb is opened. Inside are wooden braziers, superheated stones. And on those stones, residue from cannabis plants with unusually high THC content. Pay attention. This was not cannabis for spinning rope. Not for extracting oil. Not for seeds. This was carefully selected, meticulously prepared material placed there specifically for ritual use. And it had been placed in a tomb, meaning this material was so valuable that it was buried alongside the dead, for the journey to the other world, for the transition. But wait, 500 BC isn't actually that ancient. Written history already exists by that point. So what happened before that? Why don't we have evidence from further back? Here's the trap most people fall into. Organic material does not survive. You can find a stone tool from 3 million years ago, because stone doesn't decay. But a leather pouch full of plants? It dissolves into the earth within a few centuries. A wooden pipe? Gone. Plant residue? Usually leaves no trace at all. So the evidence we have is just the tip of the iceberg. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Read that one more time. It genuinely matters. Utah, the Great Salt Lake Desert. Researchers found a 12,000-year-old hearth. A used, organized, sheltered area for making fire. And inside this hearth, Nicotiana attenuata seeds. A wild tobacco species native to North America. Not carried there by the wind. Concentrated, accumulated, appearing to have been deliberately placed there. 12,000 years ago. At that time there was no pottery, no pipes, no agriculture, no writing, no cities. But someone already knew what tobacco was, and they were throwing it into the fire. This is the oldest evidence of tobacco use ever found. And this was something discovered by chance by archaeologists who weren't even looking for it. How many more are out there still undiscovered? Here's the question nobody asks. Tobacco was native to the Americas. Meaning 12,000 years ago, people in Asia, Africa, and Europe didn't know tobacco existed. So what were they doing? Every continent had its own psychoactive plants. Cannabis grew in Central Asia, opium poppy in the Mediterranean, various hallucinogenic mushrooms in Europe and Siberia, and independently, without any knowledge of each other, people on different continents were showing the same behavior, lighting fires, putting plants in them, inhaling the smoke. This is not a coincidence. This is a universal human drive. This is something encoded into our species' DNA. Now let's pause for a second, because I need to tell you about Herodotus, the most famous historian of the ancient world, living in the 5th century BC. One day he wrote about the Scythians, the nomadic people of the Eurasian steppe. He said, they set up small tents, put heated stones inside, throw cannabis seeds on top, then they crawl inside and inhale the smoke. And Herodotus adds this note, howling with pleasure. For centuries, historians said, he's exaggerating, he misunderstood what he saw. Then they started excavating Scythian burial mounds. What did they find? Bronze braziers, heated stones, cannabis residue. Herodotus was completely right. The man was just writing down what he saw, perhaps with a touch of envy. The Ebers Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical text from 1550 BC. What's inside? Smoke inhalation treatments for throat and lung diseases. Ancient Indian Ayurveda, dating back 3,000 years, a practice called Dhumapana, specific plants, specific conditions, specific protocols. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates wrote about inhaling medicinal herbal vapors for lung diseases. In China, in Mesopotamia, in every ancient civilization, the same logic prevailed. The lungs are the fastest delivery system. Burn a plant and the smoke goes directly to your lungs. We still work with this logic today. Inhalers, anesthetic gases, nebulizers. The delivery method survived. Only the burning part changed. And then the Europeans arrived. They saw tobacco. They copied it. But they understood none of it. For the natives, tobacco was something sacred. For thousands of years it had been used with measure, with ritual, with deep reverence. Blowing smoke over someone was a gesture of blessing, a form of bonding, of showing respect, of prayer. The shaman wasn't smoking casually. He was opening a channel between the living and the dead. Smoke was a carrier, a messenger, rising upward, carrying prayers, bringing visions back down. The European industrialists who took this plant threw it open to mass consumption. They marketed it to children. They silenced doctors with money. They added chemicals to make addiction hit faster and harder. A shaman and a tobacco company executive both worked with the same plant. The moral chasm between them is one of the largest in human history. Go back to that tomb in the Pamir Mountains. 2,500 years ago, someone was buried there. Among the things placed beside them was the finest cannabis available. Not randomly, carefully chosen. This was not coincidence. This was belief. A belief that smoke was not merely a substance. A belief that it was a carrier, a messenger, something that traveled between two worlds. Think about the line stretching from that 12,000-year-old hearth in the Utah desert to this tomb. That line never breaks. The tool changes. The plant changes. The culture changes. But the urge remains the same. The moment of a human reaching towards smoke remains the same. Now go outside, light a campfire, or just light a candle and sit in front of it. Watch the smoke rise, and think about this. This exact same smoke, this exact same movement, passed before someone's eyes in the Utah desert 12,000 years ago. It filled the lungs of Homo erectus in Wonderwork Cave 1 million years ago. It was placed inside a tomb in the Pamir Mountains. It mixed with shouts inside Scythian tents. The difference between them and you? They didn't yet fully know what this was, but they still felt something, and they did it again and again. This is what humanity is. You feel something, you can't forget it, and you do it again. Before writing, before cities, before laws, there was smoke, there was breath, and we breathed it in,